President Biden is facing increasing pressure to declare a national climate emergency as temperatures soar across the U.S. and Europe.
This move would allow him to unlock federal resources to address the issue. The White House says President Biden is not ready to declare the emergency, but he is planning to take some executive actions. Mr. Biden is traveling to a former coal-fired power plant turned wind power facility in Massachusetts today to promote his climate action efforts.
Christiana Figueres joins us now. She formerly served as a climate chief for the United Nations. She's currently the co-host of the climate change podcast, Outraged and Optimism. Christiana, welcome. It's great to have you with us. So the head of the United Nations Weather Agency addressed the heat waves sweeping across Europe on Tuesday. Let's listen for a moment.
I hope that these kind of events are going to be a wake-up call for many governments, and I hope that also in democratic countries, these kind of events will have an impact on voting behavior.
So which are the heat waves exactly he's referring to that you believe should be or will be a wake-up call for President Biden to combat climate change?
Well, the fact is that just in the past few months, we've had an extraordinary array of heat waves. Just a few months ago, China was burning up, and I learned last night that it is burning again. Over the past week, we have seen record-breaking temperatures in Portugal, Italy, France, Spain, and the UK. So, sizable part of Europe. I don't know, how many wake-up calls are we going to need in order to understand that this truly is an emergency. Mm-hmm. You know what it's like? It's like the alarm clock rings and then we just press the snooze button and we go back to sleep. And then the alarm clock rings again and we press the snooze button. How many times are we going to press the snooze button?
Yeah.
So, on this point, the head of the United Nations Weather Agency also said Tuesday the heat waves we're experiencing now will become, quote, more frequent in the coming decade. So if that's true, that high temperatures will inevitably continue through to the 2060s, some people might ask, why bother? Why take action now?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting logic, right? It's a little bit like saying, okay, a patient has lung cancer and they will have lung cancer for whatever is left in their life. So why should they give up smoking? Why should they change any habits in their life? That's the logic. Because we have to change our habits, we have to change our decisions, we have to change our investments in order to avoid the worst. We're already seeing pretty drastic heat waves that have already taken lives in Europe. In Portugal, you had one person dying every 40 minutes. Every 40 minutes, one person died last week. That is just unbelievable. We've never had that kind of a situation.
Yeah, it's unsustainable. So, there are some legal scholars, Christiana, who are arguing that declaring a national climate emergency is not justified because emergency powers should be reserved for crises like epidemics or terrorist attacks. How would you respond to that line of thinking?
Well, I would respond by saying, yes, of course, there are some emergencies that are acute, like a terrorist attack. There are other emergencies that are chronic. That's climate change. This is an emergency. It shows its ugly head every now and then, but every now and then is getting more and more frequent and more devastating. So how many of those reminders do we have to understand that we are living in a climate emergency?
Well, you're the co-host of a climate action podcast called Optimism and Outrage. So at this point, are you more outraged or optimistic about efforts to fight climate change, and why?
I am both. I am outraged that we haven't done enough, that we haven't stood up to the exigencies of science. Scientists have been screaming from their rooftops, and we are not doing enough. I'm also optimistic at the same time, without canceling my outrage. I'm also optimistic because we are developing. We have huge number of technologies that are already commercial and, in fact, much cheaper than fossil fuels. We know what the policies are that are going to take us to the kind of electric system that we need. We know that we have to protect our biosphere. We have all of that knowledge. And in fact, increasingly, the financial sector is moving over its assets over to low or no carbon portfolios. So all the tools are in the tool set. The problem is we need to take those tools out and actually put them to work.
All right, well, Christiana Figueres.
A lot of work to do, right?
A lot of work to do. Thank you so much, Christiana, for sharing your insight with us.
Thank you, ladies.